Time now to talk politics with our regular panel. Joining me in the studio is National's Paul Goldsmith and Labour's Willie Jackson. Kia ora, guys. How are you going? So just first up, Paul, violent crime is down by 49,000 victims. But what's going on in our prisons?
We've had increased the number of prisoners. The previous government, Willie's government, had one goal in justice, which was to reduce the prison population by 30%, which they nearly achieved. And everybody wants to see fewer people in prison. But the problem was crime was going up at the same time. It was irrespective of what was going on in our community. And we changed the focus to reducing the number of victims of crime. That's what our justice policy is about. We want fewer victims of violent crime. We set a target to reduce. We started off with 185,000 New Zealanders being victims of crime. And we set a target to reduce that by 20,000. The good news, after 2 years, we're down 49,000. We're not complacent. That could bounce around. And it's still far too many victims of crime, but at least we're making great progress.
But with when you're locking more people up, those who are going into our prisons, and those numbers are at record numbers at the moment. I had a look at the stats last night. Aren't those people just getting worse and worse in our jails? Aren't they building up gang contacts in our jails? I mean, is that solution? Do you support the idea of lock them up and throw away the key sort of thing?
No, I mean that's
100%.
That's a characterisation. But the point is, if you want to reduce the number of victims of crime, an obvious place to start is with that tiny group of New Zealanders who create victims over and over and over again. And some of those people do need to be locked up for longer. And that's why 3 strikes laws is being brought back in some tougher legislation. Because you can't have the situation where people go and create a new victim over and over and over again and nothing gets done about it. And that's why we've changed it.
Okay, Willie, what's your take on these crime figures?
Oh, look, that's all nonsense. This is about how people feel. We're not talking about police surveys here. The reality is, I know, drug use is going through the roof in terms of cocaine, meths. You got more gang members now than police, and this hard edge strategy. They're saying everything's going down. The reality is this, Michael, is that post COVID we had a spike. That was worldwide. The stats were coming down anyway. You only have to look around the world. The stats were coming down when these guys came into office. For them to conflate their policies with the stats coming down is absolute nonsense. The stats were coming down. The stats coming down and people feeling better. It's got nothing to do with the national government at all. It's actually a worldwide trend. And the reality is, Goldie's been an absolute failure. I mean, you heard Dennis O'Reilly. Gang membership has gone through the roof. They've put the gang patch law down. Well done. But the reality is, gang membership's gone. Gang membership is going through the roof. More gang members than police. Cocaine use, meth use, nothing stacks up. So they're just using surveys, nonsensical surveys at times. It's just about how people feel.
So there's no change. So is the government cherry picking figures?
Of course they're cherry picking.
This is the gold standard measure that has been used. It was used by the previous government. They stood by it. It's a very large survey of New Zealanders on a regular basis.
How they feel.
And it shows, it says ask whether they've been a victim of crime over the past year. And because if you just go with police statistics, then that requires people to have made a complaint and actually gone.
Well, those are real statistics. Real statistics.
Look,
you're cherry picking everything.
To Willie is that 2 years ago at the election, it was number 2 or 3 issue on every doorstep was concern about public disorder, and so we've responded to that by restoring law and order, and we're determined to keep on going so that people feel safe in their communities. And the good news is we're making progress, but there's a lot more to do.
But can I just come in on this? What they're doing, their answer is locking up the homeless. This is their way of restoring safety in the community. Goldie's had a lifeline career aspiration about locking up the homeless, and I want to congratulate him today. After 18 years in politics, he's finally got it. This is their way of giving us a safer community. Go and lock the homeless up, give them a $2,000 fine, or put them in jail. It's just disgraceful what's happening at the moment. Shameful.
And I think the people who live and work in the city will be just frustrated hearing that kind of rhetorical nonsense from Willie, which is what we usually get. But what we don't hear from is from people who are just trying to make a living in the city. Have got their business. Nobody comes because there's might be 3 or 4 people outside yelling and abusing people.
Oh, well, we'll lock them up.
People who are trying to work and have their day in the sun being held back and don't feel safe in the city. And all we're doing is saying we've got a lot of tools available to help those who are in need. We've got one of the most generous welfare systems in the world. There are a lot of things that we do to help people, but if people don't want any help, we're short of some tools to dealing with people with real antisocial behaviour in our cities, and that's what we're doing.
And what you did was you changed the emergency housing rules, and despite every expert out there, every expert out there said, don't change the rules. They're in motels and hotels. You put them on the street, and then you throw them out.
Okay, look, I hear your point, guys. So you're talking about tough on crime, Paul, and I get that, and Willie's objections to that. One point I want to raise is the coward punch rules. Now your government has said that you're sort of increasing the penalties. There's a new penalties in place, and those were introduced last year. Yep. But we had Eugene Behrman on the program yesterday talking about his mate who was killed after a coward punch. He was sentenced, but he's got out just after just 11 months, and he wants there to be a minimum non-parole period introduced. Let's have a listen to what he said on the show yesterday.
You need to look at the hundreds and possibly even thousands of people that the crime doesn't necessarily cause death to, but there's this massive flow-on effect of anxiety and trauma, injury. It's the deaths are the tip of the spear. But every weekend in this country, there's coward punches going on. And it's going to continue, and there's going to continue to be more deaths if he doesn't apply tougher laws and tougher legislation around this crime.
Yeah, so Paul, I mean, is the new law that your government's introduced, is it actually deterring this type of cowardly offender?
Well, the point I make is obviously, as a minister, I can't comment on individual cases. And the toughened sentencing laws that were brought in, of course, have only just taken effect, and so they won't have applied to things that happened before then. So what we've done is we've brought back 3 strikes. We've reduced the ability of judges to reduce sentences.
But on the specific case, I mean, will you commit or not to introducing a minimum non-parole period?
No, that's not our plan at the moment. Our plan at the moment is to have a aggravating factor and a longer sentence for coward punches, which is part of the legislation that we've introduced.
Is it acceptable then that someone who would knock someone out and kill them would be sentenced to sort of 2.5 years and then get out after 11 months?
Well, that wouldn't be the expectation once this new law is passed that we've got in the House right at the moment. There will be tougher consequences. Of course, it is a future option down the line to have minimum sentences. We don't typically have that in this country. We typically set a maximum and then have some restrictions around that. But ultimately, we've been sending a very clear message through the whole system by changing our sentencing laws to have tougher consequences for them. We've made a step. He wants us to go further, and well, look, we'll do what we're doing right now and see how that works, and if we have to come back to it, we will.
Yeah, so Willie, where do you stand on this? I mean, do you support the government's move here to introduce the maximum of 8 years, or do you think they need to go further than that?
Well, no, we're still working through it. I mean, it's watching Eugene there, and it's a terrible thing, this, and having seen it and heard about a number of incidents around our community, it's not an easy area. It would be good to actually work bipartisanly with Goldie here on this, because our communities are badly affected. So we haven't found a final position, but we're still traversing it.
Well, okay. They oppose everything we've done, and let's be honest.
Well, he just said he'd work with you.
Yeah, I know. He says it, but they voted against everything we've done.
No, that's not true. We work well together on the treaty stuff. You and I have been working.
Yes. Well, that's separate.
We've done a lot of good work together. Don't get all emotional.
Okay, just
because you've fulfilled your lifetime goal of locking up.
Willie, I just want to
people.
pivot to Iran. How do you rate how New Zealand is responding?
Well, I mean, I think Winston said all the right things about New Zealanders getting out. I think, we all, again, this is obviously, we want to work together as a New Zealand Parliament on this, because it's tragic what's happening. And it's good what he's been saying to the Iranians, but might want to have a talk to the president too, that's for the foreign minister. I mean, have a bit of a chat there, because if you hit Iran, you're not talking Venezuela here. These guys will come back at you 100 miles an hour. They'll go for those American ships. So I'll be very careful, but I think we're you know, we support the Foreign Minister and basically most of what he's saying, but, you know, we're all worried about whether the American president's going to hit or not, you know.
Does does New Zealand actually have much grunt when these sort of things are going on when we're talking to our international partners, Paul? I mean, does our views really matter?
Oh, well, we make a contribution to the discussions, absolutely. People do listen to New Zealand's voices, but you know, we're not one of the great players of the world, so we know our position. But we're very much part of the discussions, and you know, obviously support the work that Winston and the Prime Minister is doing, and you know, trying to work our way through, which is a very difficult situation internationally.
Absolutely it is. We'll watch that space very closely. Paul Goldsmith, Willie
Thanks very
Jackson,
much.
kia ora. Thank you very much for joining us on the panel this morning.